Thank you for coming, all of you. By way of introduction, I would like to call on Honorable Timet, am I pronouncing Cholo, the minister from Lesotho, just to read for us the message of our chairperson, who is not here.
Here is the message from the chairman. I'm honored to extend greetings to esteemed participants of the CPTM 7th Central Bank Governors Think Tanking, and to say welcome to the CPTM Smart Partners Hub, although I cannot be present in person myself. On the occasion of the recent Big Biennial Commonwealth event, CHOCAM 2018, I wrote an essay, The Commonwealth and Me, about the Commonwealth and the role of the CPTM. I take this opportunity to share extracts from that essay. I quote, "The official and formal intergovernmental Commonwealth that awakens our consciousness every 2 years plays an important role to play. But in the current situation of rapid changes in the geopolitical environment, economic trends, and technological development, it is becoming necessary for Commonwealth countries to seek and avail themselves of new platforms, structures, and dynamic incorporation so as to be timely and fully briefed and updated. To assess the implications of change and to design the right type of policy responses. A networking organization constantly engaging, nimble, and alert in spotting signal of new trends and in timely transference of information like CPTM has an important complementary role to play." End of quote. This CPTM is my Commonwealth. Likewise, that of my colleagues on all the 5 continents across the globe. Our Commonwealth does not come alive only once every 2 years. Ours is alive, active, ongoing, engaging, and enriching. This think tanking on optimizing the use of data and digital technologies for financial inclusion through the smart partnership adaptive flexibility is a living proof of the alive, active, ongoing, engaging, and enriching and relevant operational Commonwealth that CPTM is. Your continuing support will ensure it remains so. On behalf of the Board of Directors, sincerely, Tan Sri Omar Abdul Radman, the Chairman. This was written on the 28th June 2018. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The next person I will call in is Dr. Mihaela, just to give us the preview of this session before we call on the governors to lead us in the real discussions on the agenda. Doctor.
Okay, I probably should stand too, Honourable Minister, yeah? But, well, I suppose from all the smart partners, one should say welcome to the governors and welcome to those who are not here, but they are here otherwise, as we know, virtually, and we are in touch with them almost daily since last year when you met at the Smart Partners Hub here in London. Welcome to the representative, I should say, although in Smart Partnership we don't have representative and formalities of that nature. Welcome to the digital inclusion group, and there are a few here. Welcome to those who are involved in national visions and as well as in standards and national statistics, who will be mainly in the afternoon. The central bank governors, as governors themselves, together with their colleagues who also joined them here, they became, as we know, one of the main attractors for the digital landscape in any country, and kind of the main attractors, not because they are developing the technology, the main attractors because they are being kind of approached to and offered technology which develop in with the speed of light. And in the last 4 years, based on the financial inclusion, innovative financial inclusion approaches that the CPTM Smart Partners governors evolved since about 17 years ago, they obviously added to their main preoccupation the understanding for themselves and their own banks, and then to share with the others this implication that is emerging and everybody's talking about. Just take everyday Financial Times, never mind, which is probably less fake news, but Financial Times, you will see at every day in the morning and in the evening, probably additional bit in Financial Times, reference to central bank of this and that, doing this and that on digital landscape. Now, I don't believe that the central banks became the leading technology development in this field. They are those who are perceived as being the main users of the digital technology that is evolving. And we're very grateful to the governors from all the Smart Partnership movement, all the Smart Partnership inclusion initiatives, including the heads of government Smart Partners, for inviting all of us, and not only to the think tanking today, to the ongoing feedback and signals that we give them and they give us. So the discussion today probably will emerge not only here, but from 10 o'clock, 10:30 onwards until 4:30, there will be a live broadcast, and people were alerted from Caribbean to Australia, to wherever else, in Uganda, in Swaziland, and Namibia. And there are national hubs who have got large screens, like they usually do in Namibia, in Windhoek, where people from all over the country were invited by Honourable Minister to join. So from 10:30 onwards, they are going to be able to almost feel like they are here. But of course, we know that if you are not here, if you are in front of a screen, you have a completely different interaction. But at least you heard some of this lexicology that people are talking about, and you have confidence, one has confidence that something is done about it and you're not behind. So the first session is more about issues to do with financial inclusion within the Smart Partnership context, which the governors or the central banks in East Africa, in Southern Africa, they've been faced to do, not necessarily related only to the digital landscape. So this is what the tradition is. So I suppose what I should do now is to hand over to Governor to see in Uganda, Professor Mutebile, and to Majosi and colleagues, Adam and the others, to try to see if you want to update yourselves, and then we listen and we react. And if there are some signals since last year that we should pick up, not necessarily only connected with the digital landscape, but that will be probably a bit further. So thank you.
Smart Partners, governors, can we have a lead in the discussion on financial inclusion?
Some doubt in some people's minds as to whether going that way would be financial inclusion or financial exclusion. Now, I have not yet decided myself what it would be, but certainly I would not like it to be financial exclusion. I would like us to maintain financial inclusion and build on that process. Otherwise, we are ending in trouble. My friend Adam Mugume, do you want to add on? Adam is my executive director for research.
Thank you. Invited, including the president, that was launched. On our part as a central bank, we believe that cryptocurrencies are too risky for the population for now. You can't have individuals issuing currencies competing obviously with the national currency. So, and moreover not regulated. So that has been our stand. And I think across the globe, I think most of the central banks have the same view that actually cryptocurrencies are too risky for now. Unregulated, many people will make losses and then they will start knocking. I think yesterday we were told somewhere that in one country, I think was it Albania, when people invested in cryptocurrencies, when they made losses, they knocked at the door of the central bank to say, "You never warned us. How do we, how do we survive?" I think there's another, and I think we had yesterday's discussion. We saw that actually these currencies are very, very lucrative in countries that are relatively unstable. So that's one issue. However, we also noted that the new development is that actually the blockchain technology is taking shape. In some of our countries, I think in some of the banks are already adopting that technology. So there is some usefulness in terms of technology that we are seeing. And I think that is really a good development. And going forward, probably that is technology we would want to appreciate to understand how, like for example, yesterday we were talking about corresponding banking, how it can help us. I remember last year when we were here, that is one of the things that came out, that how can we use blockchain technology to help us in terms of corresponding banking where we are losing some partnership. And I think that is really a positive development globally. In the case of Uganda, where we are continuing seeing developments in using technology, we are talking about mobile money loans now, where individuals can borrow money using, it is taking shape. Using your mobile money, you can get credit, do whatever you want and pay back whatever you know, which is a good development. It is also the same case with in Kenya. We're also advancing a situation where you can use mobile money for people to buy government securities. So Kenya tried it, but also in Uganda we are moving ahead to make sure that now people can equally have a platform where they can buy government securities using mobile money. That is another development. And we believe that some of these technologies going forward, you know, will continue being adopted and helping people to be integrated in the financial system. Indeed, in terms of mobile money transactions and growth, we continue seeing an exponential growth. We are talking about almost half of GDP in terms of transaction per year, in terms of mobile money. So I think it has potential to continue growing. The only hiccup we have had is increasing taxes on mobile money transactions. I remember last year when we were here, we talked about it, but because of the volume of the transactions, I think we continue seeing that is an avenue where the government is looking at in terms of For example, I think in the next financial year, which is starting in Nigeria, in the case of Uganda, every transaction, mobile money is going to be taxed about 1%, something value of the transaction. In addition to the charge that is put on the agents who are transacting. So we believe that that could have some impact on mobile money penetration, etc. But we don't believe that is really going to continue to retard, because the mobile money momentum now where it has reached, I think, is beyond probably going backward. In brief, that's the, in addition to what the governor had said, basically those are the updates from our side. Thank you.
Adam, can you reflect a little bit about this? Also focus on, because of mobile technology and so on, adding the issues related to adaptive flexibility. I mean, there are somehow it's obvious what it is and why the new approaches to financial inclusion, new type of approaches to financial inclusion from the central bank. You need to bring in adaptive flexibility, but how is that reflected in real time? You know, this adaptive flexibility that we are adding to.
What actually we are trying to do in the case of the central bank, number one, is in our case we had a challenge because the mobile money platform per se was sort of not really regulated. So what we started from was to have a law that mandates the central bank to be in charge of the national payment system, including all the mobile platform. I remember last year, I think that's where we had a difference from, say, Kenya or Tanzania in the case of Uganda. For them, they had already those laws. So in our case, the law was not yet there. So the central bank had no ability to regulate the mobile money platform per se, to know even what goes on there unless you had the law. So that's one advance I think we have really. Although the law is not yet out of the parliament, our parliament takes, the lag is relatively longer than most of the central bank passing the law. They're talking about 2 or 3 years down the road.
So in the meantime, would you say is a maladaptive environment?
Well, I mean, we haven't moved past, apart from talking with the mobile money operators in terms of really coming to an agreement, and also banks. We haven't really moved on that platform regulation. However, where we had an input is our financial inclusion strategy, which was launched. So financial inclusion, which has wide activities, including education aspect, which we believe that aspect, people knowing, campaigns on, say, on some of these benefits we're talking about, say, in mobile money. I believe that those are some of the, and that's financial inclusion was basically spearheaded by the central bank. Also, we have other partners. We have the ministries, we have NGOs, Minister of Finance, Minister of Local Governments, quite a number of ministries that are also involved, Ministry of ICT as part of the stakeholders. A telecom company. So it is really, we are spearheaded it, but basically involving many of the stakeholders. And remember, we had a situation where you would find financial inclusion in the Ministry of Finance department, financial inclusion in some embassies or international organizations. So the question was really harmonizing all those aspects, and I think the central bank has really spearheaded that in terms of really driving the strategy. But I think that one will take time to bear fruits. Sometimes technology moves much faster than what we are doing, and so.
The young ones, the new group, are very, very much ready.
Yes.
The young, smart,
Yeah.
99ers, as
Yeah.
we call them.
Yeah.
So the bank is cultivating them.
All right.
How large is, I mean, we know Uganda, we don't have a map, but we can put a map. How, I mean, the coverage of the financial inclusion in mobile banking, which part of Uganda is more active, would you say?
Obviously, in the case of Uganda, the capital city around Kampala, not around Kampala, into what we call metropolitan area. That's where you find but incidentally, I can send money to my mother who is in the village at the border with Tanzania or Rwanda, and she will get the money within the same time as the person who is in Kampala. So mobile money, the beauty of it, irrespective of where you are, the person will get the money. And I think that's the beauty. But in terms of the transaction, for example, if I'm going to buy something in the shop, I don't need to go there anymore. I just send mobile money to the shopkeeper, and then I say, can you give me this, and we'll send it the same. If it is utilities, I pay utilities using mobile money. If it is anything you want, I think that's the beauty. Whether sending money, whether you're paying utilities, I think that's why I'm saying that, well, that's why even if you tax it, people won't exit it, because it is like now a necessity. Rather than going to the traffic jam to go and to the shop, why not just send, and then the good is delivered to you? I mean, that's what we are looking at.
What do you think is happening in other countries in East Africa?
No, it is the same. It is the same
Kenya.
story. It is the same story in the East African region. I'm not sure about Burundi, probably, and South Sudan, but within Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, I mean the same development across the board.
Banks are the hubs, more or less, became the hubs. Same in Namibia, right?
Where we see like a big advancement, like in Tanzania, which we saw even last year when we were here, and also Kenya, the central banks have been involved really in spearheading, not retarding the development, but really to support the development in terms of the innovations. And incidentally also, commercial banks have picked it up. They are working now with mobile money operators to ensure that actually everything goes on smoothly. Initially, when we were starting, commercial banks were fearing that mobile money activities will take over their business. But eventually, actually, now we are seeing like mobile money loans are basically interface between operators, these telecom operators, and also commercial banks. So the mobile money operators actually work with commercial banks to get the credit. So which is really, some interaction between the two agents. Thank you.
I wanted to elaborate a bit on the campaign that you have referred to in terms of sensitizing the public.
No, actually, what we are doing now is going regional. Leave around Kampala people who will know, but in the villages, we give them attributes of, including saving, including financial education. Even now we're talking about is it digital education? What these things mean? How, having money on your mobile phone, what does it mean? Not necessarily going to cash it. So it is a campaign that involves both savings, the benefits of saving, the benefits of, using a bank, how you can use the technology. So it is a quite range of activities really. We go to the schools also, having children to educate. It is the
central bank to be able to
it is not the central bank, but as I say, it is a stakeholder group. Yeah. You have NGOs. We have some commercial, commercial banks are also involved, by the way. So it is a group really. But the only thing is that the central bank is the one spearheading it. So really to drive the financial education, and we believe that when people are informed, including some of these charges, ETC, you're talking about ETC, then they will make better decisions.
But the issues of security, people ask, if I do this, is there anything happening?
all those aspects are involved. Because that's why I say that initially someone will say, how do I send money on a mobile phone? How am I sure that the person on the other side will receive it? Or if I don't cash it, where is the money? So all those aspects come on board. So security issues, there are some people who think that their money can easily be robbed by someone going behind etc. So you bring comfort. Those things can happen. We are not saying that it has ever happened, where people, the same thing as we talk about cyber security etc., where fraud is in the commercial banks. So it can also happen in mobile money. But to bring comfort to the people that actually, it is rare. I mean, that's really what you tell the people, that it is rare, so that they have the confidence into the system. I think the most important thing is to have the confidence in the system that operates well, the benefits of it, etc., and then you say you leave them to decide.
So what can you do more than what you do now? What could one do more?
No, I think there are very many things that technology is evolving very fast. I mean, where last year, you can't say that this year it will be the same. So as technology moves, so I remember last year when we were here, I remember that most of us were not sure about this blockchain technology. But already commercial banks are already moving ahead, adopting it. We're already also talking about adopting this technology. So it is something you can't say. It is very hard to say what can I do more, because technology is moving every day. So you only say, as technology moves ahead, you get the benefits that you can adopt quickly and implement them. So it is like learning every day. As you implement, you learn, you see what can work better, and then you improve upon. But I think in the case of Uganda, where we believe that we still have a long way to go, is financial education, digital education we're talking about. I think we still need to put a lot of emphasis in that. And this will help us in terms of savings and mobilization in all different aspects. We also believe that we can go further in these mobile money loans we're talking about. I think we can take it deeper. They are small now, we're talking about less than $10 million etc. But we believe that has the potential to grow, given that you have about 23 million Ugandans on mobile money platform. We believe that some of this thing can go on. And obviously, I believe that passing the law, putting the central bank in charge of the payment system, will help us really to bring more confidence to the people who can believe in the mobile money platform, so that it can even be used as a good saving mechanism. If you tell the public that actually the central bank is in charge of this platform etc., I think the central bank has relatively more credibility to the people to ensure that actually they can believe that their savings, once they put on mobile money, is much safer than, say, in the pot, putting it under the pot in a bed, under the bed or something.
Thank you very much. Majosi, can we have
Go to Southern Africa.
It's on. Okay. I was about to borrow your voice. Thank you, smart partners. I will report on what we are doing in my country. That is the Kingdom of Eswatini. In the event you get lost, we used to be called Swaziland. Now we are called Eswatini, since we celebrated our 50 years. So just to give a where we are on issues of financial inclusion, I'm happy to report that at the beginning of the year in January, we launched a financial inclusion strategy in the country. This was launched at a high level in government, and
we already had a microfinance unit under the Ministry of Finance. This was then tasked, in fact, it became Financial Inclusion Center. It was tasked to coordinate and manage the issues that relate to financial inclusion in the country. So most of the institutions, including the central bank, are working very closely with the Financial Inclusion Center. And so we also happy to report that we also have the financial sector development implementation plan that involves virtually the whole financial sector in the country. Amongst its pillars, one of them is the issue of financial inclusion, and another one is modernization. We're looking at all of those issues as well. There are working groups that include virtually all the players in the financial sector. They regularly meet to discuss quite a number of issues and see how they can influence policy. Otherwise, on the pipeline for this year, there's a plan to do a FinScope consumer survey just to get an update on where we are on the issues of financial inclusion, among other things. The last one was done in 2014, so that will work as a baseline to see whether we are able to improve. I am happy to also report that there are mobile money developments very significantly. It's moving very fast. For quite some time, we had only one mobile. What do you call MTN? Yes, we had only one, but now we also have a second player in that sector, Swazi Mobile. But for under MTN, 95% of the adults are subscribers, so the uptake is quite high, and we are happy with the competition that is introduced by the new player. We've seen the rates changing significantly. In 2017, the value of transactions under mobile money were as much as 2.3 billion emalangeni. Issues of interoperability are coming into play with the local-owned banks, Swazi Bank, Swaziland Building Society. They're quite active in that particular area. The banks that have South African headquarters, they are pushing their own products, are not necessarily excited to join others, but they seem to be also pushing their own products that might be competing with what is on the table. So there's a lot that is actually happening there. Just like as in Uganda, for us as a central bank, we are pushing the players in the market to engage the community, particularly with a view to teach them on issues, what products do they have. I think financial literacy is key for us, and we have insisted as a central bank that we would want to see in their budgets a budget that relates to financial literacy, educating the people what products they're having. That's the area that we have said we will look into. We're not necessarily saying go to this and place and that place, but to us that is indicative enough. But when we have occasions to get like Global Money Week, we would gather with them and once again emphasize the importance of teaching people how to handle their money. Initiatives such as teaching the students how to save money, how to subsequently then use the money responsibly are being encouraged, and we've seen the banks going out of their way to schools to get that culture across. We think that is very important. We're realizing the change in technology that is moving so fast. The issues of Bitcoin, blockchain, you name it, is becoming a challenge to the central bank because everybody thinks central bank knows everything. So when there are issues, they want answers from us. What we have said initially was we are also trying to understand what is happening there. We are not necessarily responsible because some look at it as an investment opportunity. They're investing their money. Some people are coming and selling those ideas, and we're saying, you are doing it at your own risk. Don't come back to us. But we are saying ourselves, let's understand it. But we realize that some of us are not that young anymore, and we're not quick to adopt to these new ideas. As a result, we've set up a fintech unit in the central bank, populated it with the young brains. We're recruiting graduates that are coming from the top guys that are coming from our universities, and saying to them, come work with our team here, look at what is happening, inform us. Our GM Finance is in charge of that team. Very, very active GM. On a weekly basis, she reports to us as executive committee, what are the global issues? What are the local issues? Now, the one who is here is GM Research. Yes, but when I'm done with my part, the assistant governor and him will add it, what I will have left out. So we have seen it. We have said to ourselves, it's very important. At times they'll come and say, just so that we know more, give us some money so that we can also play into this. Then we can come back and report to you clearly what is actually happening there, because there's a lot that is happening. They advertise in the papers, they meet, so we want our team to go there and say what's happening in the Bitcoin. We're also learning that other central banks are in the process of issuing digital currencies. We want to understand how that works. What is our regulatory space there? Are we supposed to do anything as central bank? So we are looking at all of this and saying, how does it actually help the person who's out there in the rural areas? Mobile money, we've seen it. Just as Uganda is saying, we've seen a lot of improvements there.
Is there anything more to be done on the mobile banking besides spreading more? As a financial, conventional now, financial inclusion strategy or approach, is there anything more?
I'm not sure what more could be done, but we are willing to also understand and work on that. But I also want to say that we have established a very good relationship with the other regulators in the financial sector. We have a regulator who regulates the non-bank financial institutions. We're working very closely with them. They are dealing with your retirement funds, all your pension schemes, and medical aid and stuff like that. And then we also have those that are regulating the communications. So we are working very closely with them, even as we are trying to look at our pieces of legislation, our national payment system. We are revising it. We are looking at other related pieces of legislation. So we're getting their inputs. We want it to be as relevant as possible. We've worked with the banks and also address issues of know your customer. Some of those that sometimes can be a barrier to people in the remote areas in having even an account, because somebody would ask you for a street address. Where I come from, there are no streets in my rural area. So, and we are saying maybe up to a certain level of money that I have, the national ID should suffice. And they're learning to accept that. And we're also addressing issues of bank charges as central bank, saying when people deposit their money, you charge them. When they don't withdraw, you charge them. When they withdraw, you charge them. So we're saying that is also moving people away from participating in these areas. So we think that there's a lot that still needs to be done, and we are here to learn what others are doing and also be advised. I don't know what I will have left out. Can I, with your permission,
Thank you.
ask
Assistant Governor.
About the digital landscape, we probably talk from 10:30 onwards, Majosi, is that all right? About fintech.
That's in addition.
Just in addition to that, but not
Yes.
on the digital landscape.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Governor. I think just to add a few from what the Governor have said, I can indicate that in terms of initiatives that we are undertaking, we have secured some funding to develop a collateral register for immovable property to try and assist those informal SMEs and individuals to be able to access or to use their immovable property as collateral. We are also we are seeing a lot of developments in the mobile money. I think initially it was simply a payment, a remittance platform. People are now moving into using it as a savings platform. Although credit has not yet started, but there are indications that very soon we'll be seeing people accessing credit through a mobile platform. Already the operators are already giving credit through airtime. For example, you can access airtime and then pay later. So we see that these are developments that will be will continue to happen in the mobile money space. I can also indicate that as a bank, as the governor has indicated, we have tried to create an environment with the other regulators. We have signed MOUs so that we are able to cooperate. But moving forward, we are looking at trying to strengthen the governance aspect, whereby we want to push the mobile operators to establish subsidiaries that will run the financial services products, so that we are able to regulate these sectors effectively and maybe allow them to do more in terms of the services that they can provide. I can also indicate that within the bank, the governor has indicated that we have taken the approach that sometimes regulation can follow the innovation. We want to allow the innovation to come in, but being sensitive to its impact on financial stability. So the reason we've set up the fintech unit is to do more research and see what we can do more. What we have done already is to we are launching a challenge. We call it Fintech Challenge, because most of the fintech developments, the new initiatives are coming through the banks. We're not seeing much coming from startups and the private sector. So we will be launching a Fintech Challenge where we're encouraging people with ideas to come forward, so that we can see what can be done. We're cooperating. The country has established what we call a Royal Science and Technology Park, which encourages innovation. So we want to see what innovations can come in, which we can put in a regulatory sandbox, so that they operate within a controlled environment. And if those products are effective, we can then allow them to move into the commercial sector. Yes. I think those are the few things I can say, particularly with regards to mobile money. Within the region, the SADC region, we have developed mobile money guidelines, which we believe have been adopted by all of us. And most of the things that we'll be doing ourselves, they are probably doing them in their jurisdictions. But obviously, in terms of the fintech, I think each institution for now is approaching it differently.
I don't know, maybe I'm very wrong, but it looks like the information shared here and the activities carried out within this think tank does not filter to all of you in terms of your regional meetings in Southern Africa.
Well, I think it does. I know my colleague, even at SADC level, we do discuss this issue. My colleague, Deputy Governor from the Central Bank of Zimbabwe, will attest to this. We also raise this issue. Sometimes even at continental level, we have an association of African central bankers. We do talk about these issues. Some of those critical issues that deal even with cyber security, we do have even symposium, we do have experts that come and talk to us on those issues. I'm not sure whether the Honorable Minister of Lesotho would also want to say something on this, but we do discuss and share this. With
input of the experts after that. That's what.
I mean, you go back to your country and look at the strategy that you're trying to follow and incorporate what you have learned from those meetings. Sometimes you will engage bilaterally, but also what you have learned as a group, you say, let's initiate it, let's further tweak our strategy to incorporate all of that. Yeah.
Deputy Governor. Where is Njulwa or somebody to pass on these things? I think we are only torturing ourselves because you are recording, yeah? Otherwise, we may give up to microphones.
Thank you. So let me just say a few things about what we're doing in Zimbabwe on the financial inclusion and then take a bit on the fintech. But just to confirm what government
It doesn't work.
at the SADC level, central bank governors meet quite regularly. And the issues that we're discussing here are always on the agenda of the discussion. So it's discussed, although the officials discuss, but it filters into the governors' discussions. And normally SADC works in the sense that you do model, like he talked about the model mobile payment systems and so forth, and then we implement them. But anyway, in Zimbabwe, as I mentioned last year, that we are now implementing a financial inclusion strategy, a national financial inclusion strategy. And we divided ourselves into a number of thematic groups that implement different aspects of that strategy. One thematic group is on SMEs and financial inclusion. Another thematic group is on women, the youth, and financial inclusion. And another thematic group looks at financial literacy, consumer protection, and so forth. So there are 5 of them in all. And what we've done is we've also set up a supporting infrastructure for each of these thematic groups in terms of putting together what we call empowerment funds to assist. This is from the central bank, but not controlled by the central bank, because it's very important that we separate. It's not our main function. Yes, but so the funds are put by us, but we don't control them. We have institutions, like for example, for women's empowerment. Last week we set up a women's bank, which was launched by President Mnangagwa, I think on Friday or last week, which targets women. But in the commercial banks, we've also established women's and SME desks that also control that money. So it's given at much more concessional rates than commercial rates. But the risk assessment is the same as a normal commercial loan, but just the rates are much lower because we're partly subsidizing them. We have another one that deals with people with disabilities also, but also that one is also managed by a commercial bank, a government commercial bank. So, and anyway, we've also organized around these thematic groups outreach programs that are also funded from these central bank, from these commercial banks. Part of it is sort of for financial literacy and outreach. And to date, we've sort of reached out to about 17,000 people across the country. And then, just to move on to, I think some of the outcome of these actually have been very good. Maybe let me share 1 or 2 statistics. The number of women with bank accounts has increased from around 700,000 to 935,000. This is still very small because we have 3 million bank accounts, so still very low. But we're hoping that with the establishment of Women's Bank, we can have more women coming into that. And then the second important thing is that, but this is also partly because of the challenges we face as a country, in the sense that we don't have a national currency. We're using the US dollar mainly the US dollar. We've seen a huge growth in transactions through digital financial services. through mobile money, through pure point of sale machines and so forth, to the extent that about 96% of transactions in Zimbabwe today are through digital financial services. So cash transactions have fallen, partly because people just can't find the cash. But mobile technology has really just expanded. And what we're now encouraging mobile companies to do is, instead of, like, which is what I think my colleague from Solent was saying, instead of just transferring money, which is just acting like what we used to do with the bus. So you put someone in a bus, they carry the money and take it to your grandmother in the village. That's what mobile monies do most of the time, because they're just moving money from one point to the other. But we're saying, let's do more than that. Let's also offer other financial services through that platform. Where the e-wallet that can sit on that platform as a form of savings, if you like. Let's also use that platform for insurance, especially crop insurance and stuff like that. And finally, like Swaziland and others, we have set up a fintech group in the central bank. But we're trying now to expand it and make it national. So you have a fintech hub that includes all the other players that are affected by this. Because my own approach to these issues, especially the crypto issue, is, look, we're at the same place where the banks were when mobile technology came in with money. They were complaining, oh, these people are taking our space, banking is our space, they're infringing and so forth. But they couldn't find that technology. They could not fight that it came. So us in the central banks were saying, oh, the crypto is not money, it's not currency, it's not scalable, it's also, so it leads to congestion and stuff like that. But it will come. So we need to prepare for it. It may fall, it may not come, I don't know. But look, let's not be hostile to it. Let's understand it. So that's the approach we want to take. That, look, let's understand this technology, both the crypto and the underlying technology itself, because technology has other uses. But the crypto itself, look, it may come, it may collapse, I don't know. But if it doesn't collapse and it takes over our responsibilities, let's be ready. Thank you.
Now to
Lesotho.
Lesotho briefly.
Honorable Minister, you are not the governor, but you
Mihaela
can.
is a very curious person.
Thank you.
I don't want to sound like I'm washing the dirty linen in public. You will recall, if you set a record on the development of Lesotho, that from 2012 we have been engaging in trying to stable the country politically. We are on the third coalition government, and I'm only 1 year in office as the minister in the Prime Minister's office, trying to coordinate all the ministries as to what strategies would be followed. Unfortunately, this particular matter would be conveniently addressed by the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Central Bank. Unfortunately, they are not here because of other engagements. You know that there is SACU thing in Botswana. However, if I am accompanied by the peers in my ministry, and I'm accompanied by the director of the Smart Partnership Hub, if they have an idea of what are strategies being engaged in this particular matter, I would give them an opportunity to do that. But for now, it may not be easy to interact quite effectively because of the fact that you need some information. But from the perspective of what inclusion, from the definition point of view, financial inclusion actually refers to, in simpler terms, to engage almost all the stakeholders so that everybody, the citizens of the country, have access to finance to do other things for the economic growth. But unfortunately, I don't have adequate information at the moment that I may interact quite effectively and to give a proper image of our country. Now, in the absence of the Minister of Finance and the Governor, it may not be easy. It would be like I'm washing the dirty linen in public. So if my colleagues have something to say in this particular instance, they can carry on. But for now, as I'm representing the country, let me just stop there.
Thank you very much, Minister. Is there any delegate from Lesotho who would like to share any information at this stage? Not? Oh, thank you. Then we will go into a 15-minute discussion. I'm very generous. 10. Let's make it 15 maximum. If we finish at 9, it's okay. 9 minutes, it will be okay with me. But maximum 15 minutes. Yes, smart partners, we have had some reports on progress made in certain countries from governors. Do we have at this stage any interventions, additions, or questions for clarity? Yes, sir.
Do I need a microphone first? Or?
No, the voice is very strong. I can.
It's already too loud.
Oh, yes.
But can I apologize for my voice being too loud?
No, it is normal loud, not too loud.
Chairman, I'm struck by two things. First of all, it's well known that Africa leads the world in mobile financial technology. And I'd like to ask if there are any things that we in the West can learn from your experience, particularly in the context of the subject matter that we've been discussing, which is the use of mobile technology to promote financial inclusion. Because it seems to me that you guys have had a lot more success than we have at doing this. And I wonder what tricks you've learned that we don't know. So I'd really appreciate that. And there's a second question which is linked, which is that it still just seems to me, and I'm not a technical expert by any means, but I still feel very nervous. I'm one of these people in their late 60s that find it very hard to get used to technology. And I still feel very nervous about the security aspect. Now, you guys clearly feel a lot more comfortable about the security than I do. I'm worried about losing my mobile phone because I think, which people's names and addresses are on the phone that I don't want to be found out about and that kind of thing. But if it turns out my mobile phone has all my money on it as well, I'm even more worried. So can you reassure me that actually this is a technical problem that has been solved, or is there a genuine issue here that we do need to be nervous about? Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much. Yes, any other?
Adam can reply.
No, later on. Let's have other, we will have time to reply.
Can I make a point?
Yes, please.
My voice, which is, Honourable Minister, that we've heard very good experiences and descriptions around a number of themes, and there are various common themes from the governors and their colleagues, which appear: education, inclusion, digitalisation, etc., etc. This is the 7th Central Bank Governors meeting. There will no doubt be an 8th. And it would be nice to get some sense of what the governors feel they would like, progress they'd like to have made by the time we come to the 8th meeting. In other words, I'm just trying to be a little bit disciplining in saying lots of things are being said and more will be said. And I'd just like to get a sense of priorities about what you would most like to feel had happened in the coming months before we meet again. Because you made a reference yourself, or someone from Uganda perhaps made a reference to parliamentary legislation which may take 3 years. Well, 3 years is a lifetime in the digital era. So I'd just like to get some sense of priorities. So this isn't asking for a response necessarily, but just something that could be a sense of feel around the discussions that are going to happen around the question of urgency.
Thank you, Smart Partner. Next. Do we have the next contributor to the discussions?
Kit.
I've had some, I was welcoming what you were saying about financial inclusion of going into schools and teach money and how to use it and so forth. My concern over that is that it is quite difficult in schools to deal with things which are not on their general curriculum. So if there is an initiative of that kind from you and so forth into the schools, it would be helpful to know what materials and so forth have been developed so that those people who go in can efficiently disseminate the message, to give the message. And for other people from other countries that are wanting to also have that sort of involvement, to be able to make use of those materials. I say this because I've had experience of going into schools and dealing with issues which are not on the general curriculum, but which they need to know about, in our case, the courts and law, you know. But for this, one needs to have the right sorts of materials available, good teaching materials and so forth to do so. And for financial inclusion, we've seen some initiatives in Britain as well about going into schools and trying to teach about this. But the thing that is very important is to have good, effective materials and for those to be shared amongst other people who are wanting to make the same sort of initiative.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think I was impressed by that. Knowing our continent, you need that type of extramural activity. If you can term it like, it's very, very important. Because many times we think that people don't have the necessary finances, but the use is always a problem, even if you have the funds. And that is very impressive. I think we have to promote it. Thank you very much. You will have the proper answer.
Is the development of fintechs across the governors and the focus really on how I heard it a couple of times. It's funded but not controlled, and how regulation follows the technology rather than, you know. So there's a general theme that there's, you know, key hubs or key technology initiatives in all the countries to look at new technologies and consider how they should be developed. So it was just an observation rather than anything else.
Thank you very much. Yes. Governors. Oh, Christian. Oh, yes.
Hi there.
Can I say you are the last now? Eh?
Yeah,
because the list from Dr. Mihaela never ends.
Well, anyway,
yes,
thank you for
Christian.
allowing me
Yes.
to make this remark. I've been struck by the sort of mobile banking and mobile money developments in East Africa. It's something that we've heard a lot about over the past couple of years, and it sort of strikes me that you know, when looking at fintech and sort of technological solutions and innovation, that there is such a thing as sort of like second or third mover advantage. So, I mean, I know a little bit about South Africa and the financial system there. I think South Africa's problem is that the financial system and the country's sort of financial infrastructure is already sort of well developed. And the strategies for sort of financial inclusion increasingly focus on bringing what sort of Thabo Mbeki used to call the second economy, you know, into the existing financial sector through traditional means and traditional channels. Whereas I think if you look at countries that are trying to sort of develop a new sort of financial architecture based on new technologies, that sometimes presents these countries with an opportunity to come up with different and new, because you get to sort of start all fresh. I mean, in Europe, you kind of have this that's already taken place with regard to broadband. And lots of countries that sort of came late to the party in Eastern Europe actually ended up having much faster broadband speeds than countries in Western Europe. And you sort of think about the Baltics and Estonia and others. And so it's just interesting that although people increasingly talk about sort of Africa's development gap, if you're thinking about technology and new solutions, actually that's an opportunity to sort of leapfrog all the other rubbish that's taken place and get straight to the cutting edge solutions. And that was just my remark. Yeah. Yeah.
Please don't.
Isam, I know what is going on. Isam, in Malaysia, you are. Can you explain about particularly what Douglas was saying, the security aspect and the consumers from the bank?
Well, in Malaysia right now, it's a very unique, delicate position because we have a new governor, apart from a new bank governor, apart from a new old prime minister. We have a
New old
so.
prime minister.
In fact, this morning I just learned that there are quite a number of resignations just now happening. So it's a flurry of activities going on. But in terms of financial inclusion as well as digital currency and all that, I think our central bank has been doing a bit of work. So in terms of cryptocurrency, it is still, I think, like everywhere else, our central bank doesn't recognize it as legal tender, but there is a worry. It has been a worry that digital currency might be used for money laundering and financing of terrorism. So they have actually come out. The central bank has actually come out with a guideline in February this year to manage the exchange of digital currency to fiat currency. So the guidelines are already out there. We have, in fact, the central bank has actually recognized 14, if I'm not mistaken, 14 exchanges that have been registered with the central bank to actually monitor the situation. The issue is actually where who is actually they just want to track track who is actually making to make sure that these transactions, the conversion between the digital currency and actual currency is being monitored. And all right, okay, you wanted me to talk about mobile banking. All right. In fact, one of the issues in Malaysia is that we have different levels of digital literacy. We have businesses that are already at the front edge that are using mobile payment, even through NFC. This is actually even, like for me, I do my groceries, I just pay with my smartphone, which is actually a bit risky, but it's already there. But there are also in the rural areas where smartphones is also still a luxury. So that is one of our challenges as well. But in terms of security, I think the central bank has been working with all the banks and all the relevant agencies to make sure that there are systems in place to watch this. But then again, if you read the local newspapers in Malaysia, almost every week there's always a case about mobile phone fraud. And right now the most worrying thing is financial fraud using smartphones. That is actually a rising trend, sadly, in Malaysia. So I think the government and the relevant agencies are really looking to this. And in fact, the new minister will be looking at this very, very closely.
Yeah, maybe we have to move over to some responses on the comments and possible questions asked. We start with you, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just attempt to respond to a few. Maybe my starting point would be to say this financial technology has come up with a lot of things and has led to our institutions saying we do not want to stifle this progress. At the pace at which it is going, we probably are going to be very slow in setting up the necessary legislation to regulate it. We probably don't even know how to regulate it as it is, but we do not want to stifle it. So we want to allow it to take place. That is why we are saying then regulations could follow. It has got to the point where we are also saying certain things, the way we do them, you end up waiving. The example I was giving, we've set up a fintech unit, but the team is saying, for us to understand how this Bitcoin works, give us money so that we can invest, we can participate. And I do recall we were discussing it ourselves with the assistant governor and saying, but there are certain procedures in the bank, how we can't just give you money. But if we follow that procedure, it would not work. So I'm saying it has left us in a situation where it's business unusual. We just have to go that route. Otherwise, we would be we're stifling the progress in that particular area. On the issues that we probably 7 years down, what have we learned? It's quite, for me, if I could say so, I've always admired this forum here, because the first time we talked about Bitcoin, I'd heard about it, and it was in this forum. I think this forum was able to get a young man to come and tell us, what is this? What is this all about? You know, it starts like it's anti-establishment, but what is it? And then you got the feel that this is not something that you can ignore. You need to learn a bit more. And increasingly, I think there's still space for us to understand the regulatory role of the central banks. You know, this is the concern that is still there, even as it goes on. How are we going to regulate it? Maybe we are still used to regulating. It's still the issue for all of us in that particular area. On the issues of schools, yes, indeed, we were trying to encourage this. This will certainly involve touching base with the Minister of Education, those that are looking at the curriculum, just making sure it is there. But even particularly so, those that are going to be promoting the products, it's not just anybody. I know we were advised, even as central banks, if you have so many banks, you probably don't want to find yourself being labeled as part of a particular commercial bank because you are regulating. But just be sure that when they go there, the right message is being taken across. At the end of the day, it has to be incorporated in the curriculum so that you know you're teaching the right stuff. And speaking of those issues, teaching people how to look after their money, how to manage their money, probably will not end in schools. Even at tertiary level, at some stage, maybe before they graduate, you need to teach them. And somebody said even when they're already employed, before retirement, you've got to teach them. What I also found interesting in one of the forum was that not only that, you teach them just before they also get married, how to look after their money. And even more interesting was if they're about to divorce, teach them as well how to look after their money. So it's very important, things like that. I think the issue of security, probably my colleagues that are more advanced in East Africa will talk to this, but sometimes you have a feeling that it's not different from the way you rely so much on credit cards. You rely on those. If you lose it, what happens? I think the secret to all of this is on that PIN, on that code that you would use, guarding it safely. When they do steal my cell phone, will they have access to my code? I don't know whether it's as good as that. But that I thought I should just mention it. It's very important, this kind of fora where we learn from what others are doing, at what stage they are. This is where we begin to leapfrog and say we don't want to be repeating the mistakes that they did. They're already here. Why don't we just get there? This is often what determines our benchmarking. Who do we want to be aligned with, and at what stage of that development are they? Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Yes, no, we.
I think on the aspect of risk, I think Governor has explained it quite well. I think it is a question of saying, well, if you have a platform that you have in charge of, that's why we started with saying, who is in charge of the platforms, the exchange platforms. In our case, that's why we are saying that the national payments law that mandates the central bank to regulate and look into the platform is fundamental. Based on that, then you can know, you can know what is going on. But that does not necessarily mean that there won't be any frauds. The frauds will always be there, but the question is to what extent? And I think that's where you're coming from. I agree with you that most economists will take many years to adopt mobile money platform, because you start computing risks involved. So if you start computing risks involved, you will get scared. I was one of the people, I think, who also went on mobile money much later. But the question is, I had no alternative. Because if you think about it, when I would send my mother, say, for example, money, I would used to send it by bus. You put in an envelope, because there was no banking place in the village. No microfinance, no bank. So the easiest way, you would put money in an envelope, give to the bus, and then the bus will charge you small fee, deliver it to a town's or whatever, and then it should come and pick it from there. Now, that is grossly inefficient. With mobile money, you are talking about seconds. So you start saying, okay, even if I make a loss, but at least the probability that my mother will get the money instantly is really very high. So that's how we started adopting. Now, for developed countries where you have no problem with the banking, wherever you go, you probably find a bank there. So obviously it becomes, why bother? But in our case, the alternatives are too costly. So using that platform, I think, is the quite an efficient way. But I agree with you that we have had cases in the case of Uganda where, but not people from out, people within the mobile money operation activities enter into the system and they take some money, MTN, whatever etc. Yeah, no, we have had those cases, but I think it is a question of really minimizing those risks. On the school curriculum, I think we're working, in our case, in the case of Uganda, we're working with the school curriculum development center to see how we can include financial inclusion activities into the normal curriculum. And I think it is one of the activities I think we're talking about. What should we be looking for in the next round of years? Probably some of these aspects should be already incorporated into curriculum development activities, and therefore we move forward. So I think it is something to, as I said, I think some of these financial inclusion activities and financial development activities are becoming, every year you have new activities that surpass what you were last year. So it is really a method, just catching up with what's moving, rather than basically that's what I can say.
Smart partner Zimbabwe.
Oh yeah, just let me respond on the security issues. Yeah, I'll try to be brief. So on the security issues, I think the weakness is not in the mobile phone technology, but it's in the smartphone. Because the mobile technology itself, for example, if I look at my grandmother, she uses an old phone that's not a smartphone. It's much harder to break into that, because you have a code to get into her phone and a code to get into her we call it Eco Cash, also Eco Cash account. So it's harder, but on a smartphone, because I have my passwords, I have my credit card now, everything, my credit card, then people can fish and steal. But on the technology itself, the risks are very low. They are on the smartphone, because smartphone is too much information, it's easy to break into.
Thank you very much. Any other person who wants to round up? Yes? Assistant Governor.
Thank you. I want to add that in terms of the issues of security, in our case, what we do, because Basel issues the core principles for financial market infrastructures, we try to apply these principles for these operators who run these platforms. Of course, we'll give them
time frames to comply with some of these principles, just to try and make sure that they also deal with the issues of security and governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends, yes, oh, thank you, thank you.
And with my current interactions with my previous employers as well, I think the most important issue when we talk about security is not the technology itself, but mainly is the human. The weakest link is always the human, not the technology. And like mentioned just now, the financial fraud through smartphones, what they are doing right now in Malaysia is actually they are registering mobile phone numbers using somebody else's identity card. So what they do after that is they actually register bank accounts using this fake identity cards belonging to someone else, and they do online transactions using this identity that has been stolen and using smartphones. Because right now, whenever you do online transactions, they will always send a code, authorization code through the smartphone. So when you have already access to a bank account, a fraud with a different identity, as well as you have another phone, you have a smartphone, which is linked to that account using a fraud identity, then actually there's already a fraud happening right there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our way ahead on the reporting after the last think tank meeting.